Welcome back to Humans and AI, where we explore the fascinating world of how people and technology are shaping the future. I'm your host, Adi Mazolkayo, product design and AI expert and the creator of the online leader program, Unlocking the Power of Generative AI. And today we're focusing on the critical need for established companies to embrace AI and navigate the exciting world of AI innovation. Joining us is leading speaker and trainer who helps corporate leaders understand the potential of AI and develop strategies for successful implementation. We'll be discussing the essential knowledge, skills, mindset that are needed for businesses to leverage AI effectively. Get ready for a conversation packed with practical insights and expert advice. Hi, Dean.
Hard, hardy.
I'm so happy that you're here and you have this opportunity to speak. I'm sure it's going to be really interesting. We're live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and everybody's invited to join the discussion and ask questions. So now we can start.
Brilliant.
By the way,
Great.
Dean, I forgot to introduce you. Dean Furman, AI keynote speaker and trainer. Yeah. So hi, Dean. What are what are the most common misconceptions that corporate have about AI, and why is it important to address them?
I think that there's a general lack of understanding in terms of what AI is, and even a general lack of a common language. You often find that different leaders within an organization will be talking about AI, but referring to completely different components. Some will be talking about the generative AI, the likes of Copilot, ChatGPT, etc. Others will be talking about how they get insights from their data. Other ones would be talking about robotics elements. And obviously, all of these are part of the greater, bigger theme of artificial intelligence, but you find that there's not that common language. Now, often people, a misconception is that you have to have this huge, complex project to be able to bring AI into your business. Like you hear certain people saying, no, we're not ready as a business to really push AI going forward. But it's not the case, is that there's certain elements of AI that require complex, longer term projects, but a lot of AI bringing that into the organization is quick, simple, with almost instantaneous returns on investment. So I feel that there is a mental block in certain areas that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, but don't you feel that sometimes they're talking more about the technology and the risk and what's going on with the technology than about what is really needed in the organization, what are their needs, what the customers need, and so forth. So it's like starting the backwards as I see it, right?
I agree 100%. It's just that AI is just a tool to solve problems. So that's it. And it's
Yeah.
irresponsible to ignore the best solution at the moment to solve most problems, which is AI.
Yeah. And I think that what you mentioned is like different points of understanding within the organization. They have different needs, and therefore they're trying to think about their point of view within this, like, what could I get from it, and not like what is the most appropriate, easiest, like low hanging fruits within the company we could just easily go for it and do, right?
Yeah, completely agree.
Do you think that at first they just need to understand the technology and then think about what is the easiest path to start with it, or you think they need to go and just take someone that would analyze everything, it's like very thorough, aligning everyone, and then only then thinking about it?
No, so I think that the two can work simultaneously. So some companies are more mature than others, but one starting point is you have to give everyone, the key decision makers within your organization, um, that confidence to really say, we get what is possible to do with AI. You want people to give them the knowledge of what can be done, ignoring what AI methodologies use, ignoring any of the jargon or the technicality, anything related to the tech stack, etc. You can ignore that, but you need your leaders to be able to say what is possible. You need for them to know what disruption may be caused by it and what opportunities there are with different areas. So that almost like an education element needed for that as a starting point to happen. And I very much feel that the ideation and the learning can happen at the same time. So it's not like learn this is everything that you need to know about AI, and then after now we're ready to ideate. That learning and ideation needs to happen at the same time while you be exposed to the use cases and the possibilities and the amazing applications that are out there. At the same time, there you highlighting, okay, we can bring this in to solve our problems. That's why, like, I actually designed a board game that we use for a lot of the corporate training that actually has that methodology as well. You discover use cases for AI, and then you apply it to your business. Discover for your users, and then apply it in different ways. So I think the learning and the ideation can happen at the same time. And you need to bring everyone along the journey. So it can't just be like, oh, you've got the chief AI officer, or you've got the CTO or the CIO, and it's their responsibility to bring AI into the business. I very much believe that it should be on the KPI of every business leader. That doesn't matter if you head up the marketing team, the HR team, the ops team, it doesn't matter what area of the business that you have. How you've brought AI in as an enabler should be a key part of how you measure it. Because just like you measured on how you've really brought your human workforce into it and help you achieve your goals, you should be measured how you use the digital workforce, being the AI, to do that. And I think that every single one of those leaders who previously it wasn't their realm to understand technology needs to do so. And the good news is it's so easy for them to really understand what can be done using AI.
Yeah. So what do you see like the biggest challenges the corporates face when trying to adopt AI, and how can they overcome it?
So I think it's no different to any other innovation. It's just they're so busy. So the number one reason companies don't innovate more is just that they don't have the time, which is a bad loop with this, because the biggest thing that will free up their time to really think and to bring new ways of thinking in, to do things differently, etc., is AI. Bringing that in will free up their time to do that. So if you don't embrace it, you won't have the time, and then you won't embrace it more, and you'll just go in this endless spiral of not actually embracing the AI. But if you start using it and you carve out the time to make it a priority, you'll just see that time for more strategic thinking, and within that AI strategic thinking will just grow and grow and grow. So I already think time is a thing that any key individual within a business is drowning with work. They've got 50 priorities. It's not like they know AI is sort of important, but they've got 50 other things that they also think are important. You have to really have them switch their mind to be like, this is actually one of, if not the biggest enabler that they have to prioritize as the top of their list.
Yeah. Don't you think that, as any other innovation, first they're very reluctant to use it? Maybe the risks, security, everything related to privacy, and everything related to the fact that it might take my job, or what they don't have a positive point of view on AI sometimes. Do you see that as a challenge or not?
Yeah, so it depends. It's very funny. Like, I work and support so many different organizations, and it's very culture specific. So where you've got a company that's got a culture that's a lot more healthy, and people have that type of learning culture that they're continuously learning new things, and they got that psychological safety where they feel that they can make themselves vulnerable to say that, no, we don't quite understand this and that, and then there's room for failure and there's room for growth. Those type of companies embrace it much quicker. But you've got some other cultures that are much more unhealthy, and no one wants to show any weakness, and no one wants to take any risk, and everyone's got their guard up. So then when there's this new realm of something that they don't quite understand, they put on this block and then use the excuse, no, there's this risk and that risk, etc. But that's why it's part of my job that when I go into companies to make sure that I break all those barriers. It's not just exposing them to what can be done technically, but it is to create that mind shift, to realize that the stuff isn't rocket science in terms of what a leader needs to know. And it is at the same time very important that they do so.
Yeah. Another thing that comes to my mind, corporations have lots of data. They have
Yes.
vast knowledge about their clients, about their suppliers, about what they're doing. So if they don't utilize this data efficiently, and AI is the best way to do so, they're just losing some of their assets as a company.
Yes.
Do they see it this way, or they're saying no? We have to keep the data within our like reach and not do so much with it.
Yeah. Everyone talks about how data is so powerful. Data is not powerful. Doing something with data is powerful. It doesn't help having it if you don't actually get the insights, and it doesn't help getting the insights if you don't act on those insights. If AI can predict based on your data which clients are most likely to buy certain extra products for you to cross-sell to or upsell to, that's useless unless you actually do something about it and actually try upsell or cross-sell. So some companies just say, no, we've got our data so well structured now and we've put it together, and then they don't use the AI to get the insights out of it. And other companies, I even find, get the insights and then they don't have the full process of, now we've got the insights, now we actually have to act on them, and we have to have a full strategy of how we take things from insight to action to actually work with it. And another thing I see is that companies wait till, no, our data's not perfect, so we can't do anything for it. And there's a company I work a lot with called Emerge ML. They're an AI company to do a lot of like machine learning, etc., for other companies. And what they always tell companies, which is completely true, is that sometimes by cleaning your data, you're actually taking the insights out of it. Sometimes there's reasons why there may be missing parts of your data that's very predictive. You don't have someone's data in a certain area. It's because of your process that you don't have that. And that because a person was sold to in a certain way and you don't have a certain detail, that actually is a very, very good predictor of how long the person will be with you, etc., as an example. So companies typically, I would say, wait too long. And also certain consultancies love to sell these big 18-month, 2-year data projects because they make a lot of money off it. So they try extend these huge horizons to, like, we've got this long period of getting your data right before we can actually start doing anything with it. But then when you've got the companies that are more honest and actually know what they're doing, you can really convert your data. Unless it's in a real shocking state, you can convert your data into real power using AI in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I think that understanding that the data could be structured differently and not that like in a very precise way, for generative AI or AI in general, just to understand it, is something that is very, I think, new to most people understanding what is AI and what is data in general. Because if it was like what we had in BI and business analysis, you need a very strict data structure just to understand it. And right now, you don't need it anymore. And you
Yes.
see it's growing and changing, like I think on a monthly basis, more or less. You see that all the time. So I think that in general, corporates are waiting in order to the last minute in order to do innovation, most of the cases. And surely in this case.
Yes, I
Um,
100% agree.
yeah, because I think it makes sense when I think about it, because they have their core abilities and their current clients, and this is what makes money right now, and this is what they're focusing on right now, and they don't want to think about maybe their competitors would be much better like in the near future or something, and then they just stay as they are.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen that there's a huge difference between companies who are still run by their founders versus companies who the CEO is technically an employee. Because what I found is when you've got a leadership of a team of a large company, what they'll do is they can make very nice salary, bonuses, etc., by changing nothing, right? So there's no
Yeah.
real incentive to risk anything by doing things differently. Because worst comes to worst, they'll just go get their high-paying job at a different company. That's it. They go spend 3-4 years at one company, make sure nothing breaks, goes 3 years, 4 years the next, and you can have a good corporate career like that. Whereas often it's different when there's a founder there. They're building their legacy, etc., and they've still got that real equity in the company that they really have to grow it into the future. And they think a lot more long term. And it's not very much like, okay, let's just guard what's making us money at the moment and not break anything. that ruins their reputation, etc. And then that there's too much reward for doing nothing within the corporate system, which is a problem.
Yeah, the incentivization structure is built on the fact that you need to more or less do whatever you've done a bit more than the last year.
Yes,
That's more or
exactly.
less the case, and the management gets bonuses based on that, and not on the fact that they risk something or try something new, because sometimes the stakeholders don't really like it, or the board don't like it, or whatever, and then they just prefer to keep it safe, and they're staying the same as they were.
Yeah, for sure. And then they got legal and compliance teams who are they really only at risk if they say that you're allowed to do something and then they get in trouble for it. So they totally incentivized to say no to everything. So you've got them being blockers typically, and you can't blame them. If I was a person in a compliance team, I'd just say no to everything because you
That's your
don't get in
job.
trouble for saying no. Yeah, exactly. You don't get in trouble for saying no, but you can get in trouble if you say yes wrongfully. So I'd be so conservative. If I was them, I don't blame them at all. But that's just the nature within organizations, and that's why it takes a special type of culture to actually shift things.
What advice would you give to corporate leaders who are just starting to explore the potential of AI?
I would say do it today, and don't just dip your toe in to see what it's like. You have to have the realization that you cannot compare a workforce who's empowered using AI, especially around generative AI now, compared to one that isn't. It's like someone with that horse and carriage compared to someone in a Lamborghini. You just can't compare, and you no longer have a choice. It's not just like this nice bonus, like to have AI. It's not like, okay, you can do well, and if you add a bit of AI to it, you can enhance what you're doing. It's literally chalk and cheese with using AI effectively versus not. And the good news is it's so easy to do it. If you partner with the right people, if you have the right people either internally or externally guiding you who actually know what they're doing, it really can become easy. But also make sure you do it with proper change management, because people are resistant to things. And even though it is such a help and such an enabler, there is a natural tendency for everyone to carry on doing things the way they've always done it. So a lot of internal marketing is needed to transition staff to be like, no, we now are really empowered with AI, and you need to embrace it and to have the freedom to embrace it, and have, again, that psychological safety to really not fear learning about it and bring it into the everyday work. And especially for employees not to feel like, no, if this thing can do a lot of my job, then I'm at risk for a job. Someone who you really knows to communicate with their people will help you adapt to this new future with it. So it's not an excuse to feel threatened by the AI.
So could you give us a few use cases, what we're talking about, like being more effective, using ChatGPT while doing things, or are we talking about utilizing the data differently? Are we talking about using it like in marketing in order to create better campaigns? Like, give us a few examples of what are we talking about?
Yeah, so cool. And I always split it up between sort of this new generative AI, which is each individual being empowered to use it on their day-to-day work, which is completely accessible now in a free or very cheap way for anyone to really enhance their daily work. And then the second thing is bigger builds into their products, into their solutions, into their backends, utilizing AI, working with their data, etc. So let's start off with the first one. Now, it's very much team dependent, and but I think even if you just got ChatGPT or Copilot, which is definitely worse than ChatGPT in terms of its capability, but a lot of my clients I know, because of safety and being able to put your own data in, you could use with Copilot. People scratch the surface of what's possible. So what I've been surprised about is that people who use it, they'll be like, no, I can help them right there, their emails or blogs, etc. But they don't realize the extent to what can be done. You can ask ChatGPT. If you think about it, I know you work a lot with innovation. So if you're going to try to create a product, you can say, to ChatGPT as an example. Come, tell me what potential pain points could be for this demographic that we're trying to sell to, that you could explore later if it's not. So given these pain points, create the different features of a solution that would be able to address these pain points. Okay, now that you've got what the solutions could look like, create the business case for executives to try sell this into it. And then you say that, and also give a project plan of how we would launch it. Obviously, give context more about your company. Then you actually want to see if this is going to work. So you say, design experiments to determine if this could be a successful product, what should be done. And then you go and create the marketing material using that. That's just from one tool through ChatGPT. That whole experience of what you're able to do for product creation, as example, it can be done in hours instead of weeks, to really put everything together. So that ideation of new solutions is one area. And then it depends which section of the business you're in. Marketing, everything changes with marketing. I think agencies are going to be killed by this. The only thing stopping agencies from really, really being really hit very hard is the slow adoption for companies that don't quite realize what they can do. I think there's going to be a big shift from agency towards tools, because right now it takes longer to write to an agency, giving them a brief of what needs to be done, than it would be to actually use a tool to get the output, which is a lot of the time as good, if not better. So I think that only agencies that have really specialities at doing certain things very, very well that can't be done at the moment by AI would be necessary. But then again, it doesn't matter for everywhere you're in. For HR, you can think about, you're trying to hire someone, you can find out what are the key questions you should ask for this particular role. You can get the job description for the job role. You can use AI to match people applying to that role. You can just do so much. It doesn't matter what area you're in, there'll be applications for you to use it. But it's just about understanding and exploring and being curious to find out what those actually are.
Yeah, I agree that there are so many use cases, and I think that they're all connected to the fact that, especially in generative AI, this part, that most people think, okay, it's not exactly as what I want. It's not giving me, they have hallucinations. It's not, sometimes they're not saying the right thing. Sometimes I cannot trust it. But I think that just understanding that this is like another person in your team that you need to train. And it's just talking to them and explaining exactly what you need. And sometimes you need to check them and see if they're right. And sometimes they're wrong. It's okay. But they could give you so much value and so many insights that you cannot even imagine. Just you need to start to have this conversation. Everyone should have this conversation and learn from it.
Definitely. And if you think about it, and it's exactly what you say, if you had an actual human being who could do all the things that even just ChatGPT can do, you pay thousands a month just to have that individual as part of your team. Whereas for $20 a month or something to get the more advanced version, it's nothing. And it's like having staff of demand. You just say, now you do my marketing, and now you do my operations work, now you do my communications that I need to, whatever you need. It's just having staff on demand. That's the thing. And naturally, like having any employer get something wrong once in a while, and your job as a manager, as a leader of that employee, is to check it and adapt what they've done. Same thing. You're working with the technology, you do that. It's no different to having a human.
Yeah, and I think the expectations should be aligned with that. Most people think that they would just ask a question and then, ta-da, it will be just magic, and they'll get like the exact answer that they thought about. But it doesn't work this way in humans. Why should it work with machines?
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
just understanding that. And another thing that comes to my mind is the matter of trust. Because when you know a new person coming to your team, you don't trust it from the beginning, right? You want to see that they're aligned with what you want and with the company needs and understanding the clients. And like, it makes sense that you need to give them some training or some information for them to be aligned to what you expect. And right now they have this expectation that this, thing knows everything. And from day one, or even like a first question, they would just answer exactly. and it doesn't make sense. And I think that corporates needs to think about it like a starting to hire new tools, new people, new AI people into their team, and just training them again and again and again until they get to a point that they know exactly what needs to be done. And it doesn't take that much time and not effort.
No, 100%. I 100% agree.
We have a question from I always try to pronounce the names well. Yaghaub Nazaralian. I hope that I pronounce it. Hi, Adi. Please introduce some useful resources for AI data bank and algorithms planning and management. Do you know any?
Not as much off the top of my head. I'm trying to understand the question. So, useful resource for AI data banks and algorithm planning and management. So, Adi, what do you understand from the question?
I understand that this is someone who wants to start working with AI data and they want to have templates or specimens, samples of data and algorithms that you could start work with. So there are websites you could take data samples from and start with. It could be data that is relevant for your organization. It doesn't have to be general data. And then you could run them with modules that are open source and start work with it, right? So this is how I understand the data banks
Okay,
or
brilliant. I was just trying to understand
samples.
the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And even if you look at Microsoft Fabric now, which is stuff like Power BI as part of that whole ecosystem, they're putting on their co-pilots onto all of that. So the learning curve to be able to use those tools now is a lot shorter, and a lot easier, because you can have the co-pilot ask them to create things for you. So one, if you've got your data and you want to summarize reports of the data before you even have any predictions, you would be able to could use the co-pilots within Microsoft Power BI to be able to do that at the click of a button. Likewise, with the more AI predictive elements inside the bigger Microsoft Fabric element, you've got the co-pilots within Microsoft Fabric that you can actually ask to do that in a way, even if you don't know completely how to use the technology and set it up in the back end with the data science, you would be able to use that. So I would start with the whole Microsoft Fabric ecosystem.
Yeah, Microsoft Fabric is like the ecosystem for AI from the beginning, from the data to the analysis and cleaning the
Yes.
data, then using the models and until the execution of the results, and it's all within the cloud of Microsoft. And many corporates are already using Azure and all of that, and they feel they trust the security of Azure, and therefore they're more prone to use that, I guess.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for your question. What are your predictions for the future of AI in the corporate world, and how can business prepare for these changes?
So eventually companies will really jump onto this AI wave, because you can't not. And with that, I do also believe that people as individuals need to start adapting now and start asking themselves, what part of my job role really will be replaced by AI, which is very specific to each individual, and which part won't. And start planning for themselves. It's almost like everyone does career planning at the beginning while they're setting out on their career. Every individual needs to start doing that now, because what happens is a lot of people put their heads in the sands, and then when the change and the disruption comes, they feel like, no, they're a victim to the change. But the thing is, you don't have to be a victim to it. You can adapt as you need to as well. So I think that, unfortunately, there will be a lot of job losses with this. It's hard to sugarcoat it in any way, because where the technology is doing more and more and more what humans really did, the truth is that there is a need for everyone to shift and upskill themselves in a way, or focus on what really makes them unique as a human, their own real speciality that AI won't have, that they can bring to any organization. And at the same time, companies need to understand the threat, because now it's much easier to have a 3-person company taking on a company that has hundreds or thousands of staff, because they can use a lot of AI. It's a big equalizer. So now challenges to companies are going to come from a lot smaller teams, because now a lot of corporates need to realize that their big weakness has always been their big strength, which is their size. Now their slowness to adapt is a huge weakness, because a few guys in a garage using AI can really, really, really pose a threat to everything that they're doing. So I think that the real thing is just the willingness to adapt, changing your mindset to realize that things will change. It is quite hard to actually even predict how things are going to change. But just know they will change, and just know you need to be adaptive, and just disruption is the name of the game now. And the ones that survive this as individuals and as companies will be ones that are willing to adapt the way that they work.
Yeah, and I think that Sam Altman said that we're really close to the 10 people unicorn startup, something
Yes.
like that. I think maybe he said 1 or 10. I don't remember the number, but it was like something like that. So a very small group of people could create a company that's worth a billion and more. And I think that we see the beginning of that. It's not there yet, but we have a glimpse of really soon how it will look. Because right now, I
Yes.
feel that we're just in the beginning of what could be, and the tools are not there yet, and the
Yes.
capabilities are not utilized in the best way yet. And people don't have the knowledge to fully utilize the capabilities of these like tools, but it's almost here. And once we have that, maybe it will be just too late for corporates and people that are more reluctant to use new technology, especially this one that is very prominent in the future.
Yeah, and if you think about the technology today is amazing, but it has flaws. But you have to think it's the worst that it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better, as you said. And if you look at, for example, the original version of ChatGPT that came out, which absolutely blew everyone's minds, nothing like that had ever been seen before. It was just ridiculous. Now you look back at it and you think it's garbage. It's like so rubbish compared to the versions we have now, like 18 months later or however
Yeah,
much
we
longer
within
later.
a year and a half, right?
A year and
Within
a
a
half
year and a
later,
half,
you're like, oh my word, that original version was terrible. And it
right?
shows. Imagine in another 18 months, we'll look back at what we have now and you'll be like, sure, I can't believe we actually used that. It was so that's how things will change.
Yeah, I think that in addition to what you're mentioning about the big language models that will get better and better, the tools will get better. So right now we have only the beginning of the software that is based on these capabilities, either open source or third party
Yes.
models. But the models would be better and the tools would be better. And the users would know how to utilize it better. So once we have all of that close together, then you would
Yes.
get to the next stage of what could be done with AI. And when companies try to really do something other than right now, I see it as using AI as a DOS system that they think it's going to be just a chat and then they're going to have this discussion. Sometimes they're trying to minimize risk and then it's like using a chat, more or less chatbot. But once they understand that it's only the beginning of what could be done and really use it, to have their own internal processes better, to get better products to their customers, to get better interactions with their third party suppliers, so forth. Once they really use it as something which is very prominent in what they're doing, it will be a very big change for them.
And you'll see, I'm sure the question will change very quickly, almost overnight, to what can we use AI for, to what can we actually use humans for. It would be like, well, AI now
Oh.
can do everything. What can we actually do with humans?
Yeah, I heard that from Elon Musk. He said that, like, what would we do when AI is going to get better? And this is why I mentioned that not only corporates needs to understand that, it's individuals that are really good professionals. Doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, a marketing expert, a designer, a coder, of course, a manager, whoever, whatever you're doing, financial experts. What you're doing right now is really really good for what the like 5-10 years from now in the past were, but the 5-10 years next from here on are going to be so different that some of the people would find that machines are doing what they're doing. You could see it very clearly in the creative roles, like photographers, graphic designers, people who are doing music, people who are doing video, etc. So there are limitations because the processing power is not there yet. That maybe in order to create a live conversation online with a video, it would need more processing power, and the performance is not that good yet. But it's going to get there. I know
Exactly.
when, but it's not going to be long. So
Yes.
just to understand that, it's like it's crazy just to think about it. And I think that even if we're taking people who are very creative and spontaneous, and you think of them as like very human in what they're doing, we're not taking something which is very strict, like numbers or finance, which is like, yeah, computers could understand finance really good, right? Or statistics. I'm taking on the other side, like creative. Let's take musicians, for example. If they're not using this technology, well, right now it's fine. But in 5 years or 2 years, I don't know, it's going to be exceptional that you're not using it and maybe even a mistake in what you're doing.
Yes. No, definitely. I think you have to. I think that there's not really an option. There's certain unique things. Maybe you want it to be completely human, and you want it to be like that. And then, for example, certain creative areas where there's something added value that comes just from a person. But whether you can get a better ultimate outcome using AI, there's no doubt that using AI, you could just do things better in most scenarios. And obviously, you have to take into account the risks and the limitations, etc. But yeah, that goes without saying. That can't be the major focus, where often that becomes the first. Look at the risks and then work out after you've dealt with all the risks what can be done, rather than look at what can be done and then finding the safe guardrails that you could put in to make sure you could do it effectively and
Mm,
safely.
right. Could you share a few good examples of how companies are using AI to improve their business?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of actual companies. So I deal with lots of different companies. It's just a lot of them, they don't want me to actually say
No, you could
what
give
they're
like
doing.
you doesn't have to take someone who's your client. It could be like, see what I know Amazon is doing in their shops in order
Yeah,
to
no, that's
finance.
good.
I
That's
know.
cool. So a lot of it's happening without you even knowing. So like that's the thing, is that a lot of people are like thinking like, oh, where's AI being used, where's not being used. But a lot of the time is that the AI is being used and you don't even know that it's being used. A lot of the personalization that the likes with Amazon would do. And I think like a good example was Airbnb published and said that I think the figure was something like 30,000 bookings they rejected over New Year's. And because their algorithms picked up, their AI picked up that these people are likely to be renting the house purely to hold house parties over New Year's. And they were rejected. The people wouldn't even realize probably that's the reason they were being rejected. They look at all different things. It takes into account how far from that place the person lives, how long's the rental, what type of property it is, etc. So there, people would be like, "Oh, okay, it's not allowing me to book this." Okay, I wonder why, but it would be because it's predicting. Oh, it's likely that they're using it for a house party. Everything that we use to today. Waze, maps, Google Maps, everything is using a lot of prediction based on how long it took in other days when people drove at a certain way. How would that be using? And then certain industries are being revolutionized by the use of AI. And you look at in fashion, for example, retail. You've got Shein and Temu, etc. And you look at Shein as an example. That's all algorithmic basis to work out what people want, exactly how they want, and to get things fast fashion, get things in days created versus typical retail that will decide before a whole season what clothes they're going to sell, etc. Shein can decide based on latest trends, analytics, algorithms, etc., exactly what type of clothes they think will sell, and then based on what people are buying and not, and in no time use that to determine what they are going to create and get it on shelves in no time, or in their case, not on shelves, get it in people's homes
In people's
in no times with that.
yeah.
So it's just all pervasive. Every industry, there's amazing examples. There's so many different examples. And I think there's just the divide between companies using it and not using it is just going to grow. And there will be,
Yeah.
you have to get onto the area where you're just using it. It's just not an option anymore.
Yeah, I think that what you mentioned at the beginning, that there is the AI, the options to use these language models or models in general, and there is
Yes.
generative AI. And most people, when
Yes.
they think about AI, they think about generative AI. They think about like talking to machines or having human
Yes.
interactions with machines. But all the algorithms in Netflix, in Amazon, in social media, of course, in order to give you what you want, or you're more prone to shop or to view something, is based on AI. And most people don't
100%.
see that as that's the same AI as what they have in mind when they're thinking about ChatGPT, which is generative AI. But still, it's the same group of automations that companies are using.
Yeah, no, completely. 100% agree.
Yeah, I think that in social media you see it very clearly that, for example, after I tried not to use any social media yesterday, I installed TikTok because I wanted to see what's going on there. Everybody's talking. Like, I'm a very
Yeah.
late bloomer in that, right? But you could see that only after, I know, like 2 clicks, that I said I'm interested in this and that, like very very general things, and maybe my birth date, so they know how old I am. That's it. They
Yes.
gave me, really, like, in a few clicks, you get exactly what's interesting for you. Just think
Yes. No.
about that, the adoption of something that knows you from the beginning. It's like, wow, how could they know that this is something that more or less is in my interest, right? So
Yes,
it's
and that's why there's
amazing.
so much of a divide. Everyone's talking about the horrible incident that happened with Trump
Right.
yesterday, but that's one of the reasons there's such a big divide, because anyone who loves Trump, the algorithms will send them stuff showing how amazing he is, and anyone who
Sure.
the opposite hates Trump will send them stuff saying how bad he is, etc. on the other side. So you get these
Right.
polarized views completely.
Yeah.
Whatever your original viewpoint was will just be built onto the whole time, and will become more and more and more extreme. And then if it's in the other direction, in the same way. So you don't have so many people these days who
Right.
are just like on the fence for anything. It's just people with extreme viewpoints, which is also very very dangerous.
Right. I think that what you see right now in social media, that everybody has a point of view, and they get more and more proof that they're right, because they want,
Exactly.
most people would tend to see something that they agree with, and not the other way around. I don't want to see something that I don't
Yes.
agree with or I don't like. And therefore I see more and more of what I already believe in. And therefore I'm
Yes.
getting more divided from people who think differently than me. But somebody wrote something really interesting. Do you know the image of Trump when he waves his hand and then he
Yes.
has these stripes of blood? And somebody said that it's like, this picture is something that could not have been created with AI. This is what he says, because it's like a mixture of different emotional states of people, the
Yes.
special forces and him. And it's like everybody's
Yes.
thinking, feeling something very very different. And you could create something like that when it's purely human, because it's not like
Yes.
exactly everybody's
Yes.
sad, everybody's happy. And
Yes.
he analyzed this picture, and you have this flag in the background and everything. And I think that it's like it's contrary to what we perceive AI to be, but it will highlight the human side of us and what is human compared to machines. Once we have more and more machines doing things, we'd say, okay, this is purely human. This is not a machine created, video or image or text, whatever. And it will be very hard to try to find out what is real humans doing and the machines, and it will be mixed.
No, 100%. It's becoming very hard. It's going to be, and a big thing, interesting, that the battle between AI generated content versus AI that can detect AI generated content. And often now it's the AI generated content that actually is stronger than the ability to predict it. So it's also a major area of danger. I'm going to have to wrap up soon,
Sure.
Adi.
Sure.
I've loved this conversation.
Sure, sure. So I'll get to the last questions. How do you say?
Yes.
So what's your number one tip for leaders today?
AI related take for leaders today?
Yeah, like whatever tip that you have for them.
Yeah, just work on your business instead of working inside your business, because most of the leaders are just firefighters. They're just putting out fires, and they paid a huge amount for their decision making ability and their strategic knowledge, etc. But most of the time, they, too much in operations. So whether it be AI work or not, you need to get onto strategy and working on your business instead of in your business.
Right. So where could people find you and contact you?
So you can either go to my personal website, deanfurman.com, or my work website, which is the numbers 1064degrees.com, or on LinkedIn. Now you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, search for Dean Furman, and reach out. It would be great to connect with you.
Thank you, Dean. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and to our change makers. Thank you for joining us, and see you next week. Have a great day. See ya.
Thank you. Thanks, Adi. This was amazing. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.